I thought I'd start today with a couple of things. One is with regard to books, uh, introductory texts. There's a couple more that came to mind. One is The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, and the other one is A New Earth by the same author. Both of those are superb introductions to the Dharma. And then there's another book. This is for more rational types that are still open-minded. The Perennial Philosophy by Aldous Huxley. I could recommend the first half of this. As I get about halfway through it, he gets a little bit more westernized in his way of approaching it, and analytic, using psychological research to see what kind of temperaments are most suited, so on and so forth. And I'm not sure that works out. I'll know more later. But what I'm really excited to talk about today is that we have a recording from the Avatamsaka, the Flower Ornaments Sutra, Flower Ornament Scripture, and it's from the Realm of Reality, which is the last book in the sutra, and it's a beautiful reading and well done of the night goddess Vasanti. Now, you must listen to it, and then a very kind listener noted that he got more the second time, which is absolutely true. The more you listen to it, the more you will get from it. And it's really a great gift to anybody with an open mind. Because what it does is it's a true gift. Let me see if I can explain it a bit. And that is that we live in a world of mind. So our mind is what decides what world we live in and what the contents of it are. Now, in the West, we've been so afraid of primitive superstitions or bizarre doctrines or bad thinking that we've failed to utilize much of the power of our mind, at least the non-religious West. And so, what this night goddess is just an addition that will enhance any world, as far as I can tell. And so, we can create in our minds, which is what is real in the mind, these powerful images and these beautiful tutelaries, which are there to help us. And like prayer, it actually works. And I know that sounds silly to many hard-nosed rationalists, but that's because they've never tried. And they have yet, although they've done really well with technology and with some aspects of science and math, they haven't explored the power of mind per se. And so I really recommend this reading to folks, especially repeated listening. It went up yesterday. And eventually, I suppose, we'll be wanting more readers. And it'd be great to be able to share this with the world, because most people have never even heard of this magnificent second century psychoactive sutra. Okay, thank you. Ready to go? Here we go. What have you learned?
I have learned that I still have so many fixations that are causing me to not stay in the balance. So, like, they're, I feel like I'm putting in a more than reasonable amount of effort into so many things because of the obsession or the fixations I have regarding those desires or wanting to avoid certain outcome, which is fear.
Okay, so join the human race. Fear and desire, fear and hope. Okay, questions about that?
Yeah, so I was looking into how to address that and get back to the balance, and I
Get
found
back to
that
center, to center.
yeah, get back to center.
If you're in
Yes.
center, if you're in the center, you're balanced, right? And the moment you start to to recognize your mind doing its tricks, you're already most of the way to the center, if not in the center altogether, right? Because you can only do that from a place outside of the desire or the fears, because there's another part of you that's observing those, and so you've already taken one step back. All right.
Hmm.
The mind is something that takes, and this is where the again, no, I don't hate to, I keep harping on this, but in addition to being present in the now as much as you possibly can in this life, you have to uncondition your mind. And now I'm speaking as a psychiatrist, a neuroscientist, and a psychologist. Uh, one must uncondition one's mind, and then that opens up the possibilities of a new way, a new world, kind of our new earth is the way Eckhart Tolle put it. But now, to do that is not easy. The Sufis and the Buddhists and others have worked on this for centuries. And one of the pinnacles of their work, again, is this particular sutra that I keep bringing up. It's amazing. And so get help is what I'm saying, but let's keep going.
Yeah, so to me it seemed that I can do that by reducing the attachment as well as accepting the things. And then I started looking into how I can do those things, and the process seems pretty like common for both, which is to watch the thing unfold, and rather than doing into the loop and doing into action or running through the thoughts, just watch them, and then slowly and slowly, magically, mind gets desensitized to those things, and maybe that is what acceptance is. So I was trying to figure out what is acceptance, and it seems that
That's
it's
very
maybe
good.
just
That's very good. That's a very
uh,
good way of looking at acceptance. It's observing and watching the thing die on its own, because nothing lasts. Nothing lasts. It's a very Taoist, Taoist, Taoist approach, and it's very, very powerful. So yeah, that's a more powerful form of acceptance, because you see, it's not occurring at the level of the words and the desire or fear. It's occurring at another level, the observing ego. So you're already one step in the right direction. That's excellent.
yeah. So it
Nothing
seemed
lasts.
that maybe yeah, it seemed that maybe all the acceptance talk, everyone talks about it, just watching and seeing that mind get desensitized and then becomes comfortable with the thing that I wanted to run away from or go for, and that's pretty much it.
Well,
What?
desensitization is one part of it, but the other part is that you've become wiser, you've become you've learned more about your own mind, and you know that nothing will last. And so even though sometimes it's very difficult, it seems like it'll never go away, it always does go away. So I don't know that your mind is desensitized, it's just learned to protect itself, or learn to guard itself, to guard your attention, to guard your mind,
Mhm.
right? And you can always ask Vasanti, the night goddess, for help. Why not?
Mhm. Mhm.
Do you see what I'm saying? Because these tutelaries are as real as your thoughts,
Mhm.
and your thoughts are the reality you live in, right?
Mhm.
So why not
Mhm.
take control of your mind and populate it and condition it towards things that are salutary, that are good for you, as opposed to these dead-end streets that just go round and round. Good. I like it. Good, good, good. Questions?
Yeah. So, so my question was, if it's about basically
By
watching
the way,
and
I'm not practicing psychiatry for all the lawyers out there. I said psychiatrist, ex-psychiatrist. Sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
yeah, yes, I was thinking that if it's about accepting things, and like one is at a level of thought, that at a level of thought I know it's just a thought, and that is pretty easy to just watch and be okay with, be comfortable with the thoughts that are coming up.
Mm-hmm.
But then sometimes things are more persistent. So like let's say if I have a real loss, like let's say loss of a loved one, or let's say a loss of something I really valued in life, and that is gone now. So then it seems that even though it's not just a thought, because something damaging did happen uh, to me, and that's why it's harder, because it's not just thought.
You're saying, what about grief?
yeah, grief or like loss
Loss
or
of what
something
could
like,
you lose that's important in this world?
so loss of like my own life or someone else's life that I cared
You can't
about.
lose your life in this world. You can lose that animal body you're attached to at the moment. I mean, you can't lose life in any meaningful sense. I mean, let's say you did lose your life. Let's forget all the Dharma. Let's forget all this stuff. Let's say you lost your life. Who cares?
Hmm.
Would you care? If let's
I
say you're an
mean,
atheist, would you care if you were an atheist whether you lost your life or not?
so after that, I'm not even there to, so
So what
there's
you've
no
done
one
is you
to
spun
care.
a fantasy of the future so you can suffer in the present or worry in the present.
Hmm.
So that's
Yeah,
self-defeating. Let me
yeah,
ask you, beyond being a pencil, what is this?
yeah, just an object.
But it's an object where?
It's an object, like in the world.
No, it's not in the world, it's in your mind. Where else could it be besides your mind? If it wasn't
Yeah,
in your
it's
mind, you
not.
wouldn't perceive. So it's in your mind, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So how is this
yeah.
object different than a thought?
Because so it's like difference between imagination and something
So
that
you're
I
saying
can.
this is imagination?
No, this is real. This pencil is real.
Is it real? Where does it exist?
Your It still exists in the mind, but
It's
then
in
I
the
can use
mind,
it
but
to
so it's
write.
real in your mind. So thoughts are real, is what you're telling me.
No, so like
Of
one is the
course they
pencil.
are real. Your thoughts are real, my friend. They're the realest thing there are.
Hmm.
What, you thought thoughts were imaginary?
No, there's a difference between. So like I have a pencil, then I can imagine a pencil. These are two different things.
Correct. But right now you're looking at this pencil.
Yeah,
Now, imagine a pencil. Are you doing
yeah,
that? Is that a thought?
yeah, yeah. That's a thought. Yeah,
Is this
that's
a
imagine.
thought?
Yeah, this is still a thought, but then
Okay,
it's
so it's a thought.
also
So let's say you imagine that there's a hurricane coming. Imagine that. Is that a
mhm.
thought?
Right now it's a thought.
Okay, now
Yes.
let's say the hurricane comes.
Mhm.
Where do you observe the effects of that hurricane? The destruction and the wind blowing and the trees bending over and the roofs coming off. Where do you see that? Where does that happen?
It's still in the mind.
That's right. It's the mind. See the power of the mind, and we don't utilize it. We don't utilize our minds. But the mind is a very powerful creative things, and they're like a staircase to, stairway to heaven if you want, but you got to use it, and you have to use it properly, and that's very hard to do because our culture doesn't want us to do that in general.
Mhm.
So again, let's say you're an atheist and you die. Do you care? No. Let's say you're not an atheist and you die. Do you care?
I mean, I'm already dead, so that point doesn't really
Very
matter.
good. Yes, yes. For practical purposes, until you wake up, you're dead. So there's nothing to
Hmm.
lose. There's nothing to fear.
Hmm.
I know that sounds kind of radical, but I'm sorry. I'm an old man. I don't have a lot of time left, and I'm just going to kind of go for it. Some people can understand or hear the truth of what I'm saying, and those are the people I'm speaking to. And for everybody else, I'm sorry. Go study some more physics or something, or neuroscience, or go to the science or go to the Dharma. Go to either one, and I think you'll see that what I'm saying is not crazy at all.
Hmm.
We live in a world that our mind creates.
Hmm.
Now there are features of the world that appear to be fixed, but they're not really fixed. Everything goes away
Hmm.
sooner or later. Nothing lasts. So in our time frame, they just seem to be permanent invariants. And there's certain features of our mind that appear to be related to being born in this primate body.
Hmm.
We don't see what frogs see. We don't see what fruit flies see, but we do see certain things. And so those appear just part and parcel of this particular incarnation as an animal, as a primate. But okay, good. I forgot the question.
Yeah. Yeah. So fear is one part. The other part was grief. So like, let's say if something really bad happens to
No,
someone.
not
Uh,
if something really bad happens, when something really bad happens. Everything bad will happen.
mhm.
I mean, you're going to either die young or you're going to lose everyone and everything you love. Everything. Your body, your teeth, your friends, your parents, your eyesight, your hearing, depending on how long you live. So it's not a question of if, it's a question of when.
Mhm.
That's why it's so important to be able to find your center. It's not just important for your life, it's important for your death and your dying.
Mhm.
Okay, so what was the question?
Yeah, and even in those cases, it just seems that acceptance is just becoming comfortable with that, uh, and that's it.
Just seeing things for what they are. That's another way to do it.
Mhm.
And when people die, they're still with you if you knew them. I mean,
I had the
they're in your mind, right? Like, how often do we visit our parents now? As we get older, we may visit our parents less, right? But they're still in our minds and in our hearts. And when their body is discarded, they're still in our minds and in our hearts. Sometimes even more. Some people find more peace when their parents are dead. Right? And all of a sudden they start to see the good things, right? And the bad things get minimized.
Mhm.
So, as they say in psychiatry, mothers are seldom an unmitigated blessing. Okay.
Yeah, I have one more follow up on this.
Okay.
Is there any other treatment for dealing with fixations or obsessions other than what we just talked about?
Well, yeah, there's everything from chemicals, anafranil, for example. I'm not prescribing, by the way. It depends on how severe and how much it limits a person. If they're not able to function in the world, right, because they're obsessing or fixated on germs on the doorknobs, and they can't get out of the house because they have to clean the doorknob 40 times and then go check the stove and then go back to the door and clean it 40 times, and they can get very, very severe. So sometimes it's a biological problem
Mhm.
with a biological approach. So you'd have to tell me how severe, but
I think I think for me, I was primarily talking about just getting to the center, like not putting more than reasonable amount effort in so many things
there you
that I
go.
seem
Yeah,
to.
just treat it gently, be gentle and kind and generous to yourself and to the obsessions.
What do you mean by being gentle to the obsession?
You just watch them come and you watch them go, and you don't get in a fight with them. If you get in a fight with an obsession, you're just going to have another obsession.
Hmm.
Again, don't fight fire with fire. Don't wash blood with blood. Don't fight with your thoughts. Just watch them calmly, peacefully. They'll fade. But then if you really want to do something for yourself, add something to your repertoire. So we have pencils and sticks, but what about night goddesses? Why not? Now, the genius of this Buddhism, this YN or Mahayana Buddhism, is that they understand that it's just a manifestation of the Buddha. She is. And the Buddha, that's something else. Buddha is truth and reality itself, the Buddhaverse. And I mean, there's many, many layers of abstraction to look at Buddha. And I've been to churches. I went to a Japanese church for a year, and they pray to the Buddha like it's praying to a saint or something. That they get their real estate deal closed or whatever. Do you see what I'm saying? So it can provide comfort. That's a double-edged sword to people at that level. That's not the level at which we're speaking here. We're speaking here of the creative use of the human heart and mind for the service of the soul, the spirit. Now, I don't know if the audience is completely familiar with the fact that by necessity, we live in a virtual reality created by something, because the world does not correspond to our sensory inputs except in the most rudimentary way. I mean, we may see green and we may see a leaf, but what's there is something totally different than that. It doesn't, those two are not the same thing. So the world that we inhabit is, frankly, a world of mind. And we should treat it as such and adorn it and take care of it, keep it cleaned up, keep it nice and shiny and beautiful and healthy. And there's all kinds of things you can do with your mind. And you should do, folks. It's the only mind you've got. It's the only world you've got. It's the only life you've got. Why not spiff it up? Throw in a night goddess here or there, you know? Now, don't go nuts the way some people do, but, you know, that's a matter of keeping balance, right? Another psychiatric adage. You know, I think we were discussing some saints and crazy people. Joan of Arc may have come up. And one of my professors quipped, he said, the difference between a saint and a madman is the advice that the voices give them. Now that's a little cute and a little bit overgeneralized or whatever, but you get the gist, right? So take advice from people who are in a position to give advice that's been time tested. Things have not changed that much. Okay.
I think I have one last follow-up on this, which is like an example was when I was reading Avatam Chaka. Earlier, I was reading each paragraph and forcing myself to visualize. And then after our discussion, I loosened up, and then it became more enjoyable and easier to read afterwards.
Good. So not too tight, not too loose, just right. And for a first reading, all you need to do is get through it, right? And get some sense of the new landscape we're talking about here. It's a totally, it's a bigger and more beautiful landscape than what we're used to, right? So now, in the old days, people would spend a lifetime with this. It doesn't get old. Forgive me. But if you just read it, just go through it the first time and let your mind get familiar with it. When you go to a new country, you don't, go into every house. You don't go into every store. So getting through it the first time is all you need to do. Excuse me. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think for me the issue was I tend to lose objectivity when I am caught up in a certain fixation. So even I kind of lose track of
Let's
what
talk
is
about
reasonable.
objectivity. Objectivity. What do you mean by that?
Objectivity means something that I can see being more like logical and detached, like unbiased. So, for example, reading a book in a manner where I'm not I'm not being too much tight because I am worried about not being perfect or things like that.
Okay. So your objectivity would be somebody else's relaxed.
Yeah.
Good.
Major.
Okay, good. I'm glad I asked. So yeah, be relaxed. There's no, you get nothing from being tense about this and most anything, frankly. Would you want a surgeon that was tense and anxious, or would you want a surgeon who was just the right amount of relaxed?
Yeah, just the right amount of relaxed.
All right,
and
so
balance.
keep that in mind. And archery is another metaphor that we use, okay?
Yeah.
Good, so you're beginning to master your mind. Great.
My next question is about like the awareness. Yeah, I think in general about awareness. So as I have been practicing like the like various kind of meditations, I can see now there's like container and the content. So like when I am, so like even the turning the light around, even in that one, there's a container in which all these senses and objects are arising, and then they dissolve in that. But and the awareness that I used to call awareness seems to be just the the feeling of container, or that it just seems like that. But then that feeling of container is probably also arising from some process in the brain.
Yes.
And
Okay,
so
let me just
there's,
say something about the general point. Differentiating container from content is one of the cruxes of Sufi teaching methodology. To know the difference between the content and the container, and it goes all the way through. Okay, and so you're starting to you're visualizing content and you're visualizing a container both, right? What's containing both the content and the container in your case? Because are you imagining an imaginary boundary between content and the cosmos?
so I don't think I am like even imagining. I'm just kind of just watching and just observing,
Mm-hmm.
and that there seems to be like a vast like there's no boundary, just a vast space in which things are arising and dissolving.
Okay.
And then behind those two, there's also an intuitive sense of something, but I just can't figure out what that intuitive thing is. So there are three things maybe at play: the content, the container, which are more concrete, and then something more intuitive, just like a very vague thing that I can't pinpoint.
The flower ornament scripture, the Avatamsaka Sutra, will help you with this, and so will watching YouTubes of the cosmos, right? Where you zoom out from the planet Earth and you see the distance, the true distance. What is it? They say a radius of, I don't know, 13.5 billion years or something like that, or more, right? But there's not a radius because there's no center and there's really no periphery. But once your brain has to visualize that, then you can go to the Flower Ornament Sutra and then understand that there are many cosmoses as there are grains of sand in the Ganges River, and then as many more of those as there are grains of sand in the Ganges River. Or you can go to science and see that there's as many as grains of sand on the planet Earth, or whatever you want. But once you begin to visualize multiple cosmoses, which I don't think we can get away from. I mean, we don't know. But the point is that this will expand your mind to the point to where the boundaries of your mind start to dissolve. But that particular edification is not the point. Later, you'll realize that the boundaries that you're feeling must be there aren't there at all. And that what you look outside, what you see is your mind. And the further you look, your mind goes that far too. And so then you begin to realize that this cosmos is, in a very real sense, what you are. But that comes a bit later. But so again, work with the sutra, and then work with the visualizations. See, we have many advantages in the 21st century. We have visualizations of things, and we have AI that can create visualizations that we can use. Now, back then they had to do it painstakingly with words. They didn't have photographs, for example, much less video, much less AI to help the brain expand. But now we've got these things, and so and also we're at a moment of crisis, which is always good for rebirth. Okay, so yeah, I would say just keep at it. A lot of the Zen points to the same thing. The Zen koans.
Mhm. I have a follow-up on that, which is even after all these practices and the reading, it's still everything seems to be coming from a space where I am in the center and everything is happening uh, around me. I'm still like there's still a feeling of me being in the center and everything is around me.
True. And it's only in moments of glad grace that that gets lifted. But once you've experienced not being in the center, once you've experienced being what there is, then you'll never want to go back to the being the center of the universe again. You'll want to hang out in the spaciousness and the beauty and the expansiveness of your true mind, your Buddha mind, the real mind, not this tiny little thing that we imagine. And we just imagine it, we imagine it's going to fit in here somehow, which is crazy after you see the obvious. Right? What we see out here creates a world in here, but it's even more amazing than that. But I'm not going to go further than that right now. But this whole thing is also an imagining of the mind. So, yes, what you're describing is very real, and that's one of the things to overcome. And that, I believe, probably takes a little grace or a little luck or a lot of preparation or devotion or dedication, some energy, some effort, some patience, some generosity, some contemplation is key. Your own contemplations, a bit of discipline, right? And some insight, some wisdom, some knowledge. But when all those things are put together, then one day it just, the way the Zenists put it, the bottom falls out of the bucket. And it's, and you go, whoa, this is what they've been saying for 4,000 years or more.
Mm-hmm.
But you can do it gradually too. Disassemble the boundaries that you've created for your mind. They're completely a mental fabrication.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're free in this cosmos.
Mm-hmm.
And so what they mean by omniscience is something akin to that. Omniscience or omniscience. Thomas Clary pronounced it omniscience. So we pronounce it that way out of respect. He probably had a very good reason for it, although I don't know exactly why.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, sir? So yeah, that's a natural limitation that will eventually dissolve.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Good observation.
I think another question I have is this I've been noticing recently, maybe for a few months. I keep forgetting things. So like earlier, like let's say if I am talking to you and I have like a list of questions stacked in my mind, I will remember and I will like know, okay, I need to ask this and this and this. And now as we talk, I forget. And then it takes me a while to recollect what I wanted to ask. And that has been happening more often. Uh, and I don't know whether it's just being more present, like a side effect of that, or is it, or I'm actually becoming forgetful about
It's
things.
a little both, but the other thing is that you'll be in one state of mind when you think of the question, and then your consciousness evolves or changes, and then in the new consciousness or new state of mind, the other one, it stops making much sense or it hits differently, right? Have you noticed that?
Yeah, that I have noticed.
But for the sake
And
of other
that,
folks, write them down, because if you have a question, I'm sure other people do too. But let's do this. Why don't we just have a moment of just quiet settling in and see if anything comes to the surface? Okay?
it it's pretty weird that now almost like nothing pops up. Uh, Maybe it's because of the practice that I have been doing uh, for some time now, which is
Is it
with
peaceful?
yeah, it's peaceful, yeah, and it's enjoyable.
Yeah.
It's relaxing.
Spacious?
Yeah, spacious. Yeah.
Okay. That's good. You're making progress. That's excellent. There's nothing to be. Oh, just hang out in that beautiful, beautiful, clear light of spaciousness, the Dharmakaya.
And in this space, there are no questions. Like
No, there aren't
questions
really. That's true.
don't even come up,
Do you
and
have any
that's
from
what
any?
I
Go ahead. Do you have any from the readings,
uh, from the readings.
or
You
from any
mean
of
the
the
readings
books?
or
The
the
books, the
questions?
readings, or any questions of anything?
Yeah, I have other question. I wrote down.
Other folks may not
Uh,
be at the place where they could just close their eyes and enter this vast spaciousness and peace, in which there's quite a bit of joy too, I might add. But go ahead. Anything?
yeah, yeah. So lately, for some reason, I have been running into people who who are troubled and who like they talk about the stuff that's bothering them,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and and I always feel like connect with those like how can I connect with those people so that they can actually listen and get something rather than
Ask Vasante for help, or the Buddha, or Jesus, or all of the angels that are aspects of your mind. I mean, these things. See, you can empower your mind with these tutelaries and these essence of you know of I don't know what the word for these people like Muhammad and Jesus and Buddha are, whatever you call those kind of people, they're still here with us, right? Just like when your parents are dead, they're still here with us too. It's all a matter of mind. And so you can evoke help before you try and help somebody, and that might help inspire you, right?
Mhm.
But let's get some juicy gossip. Okay, people are having problems, all right?
Yeah.
Just what a
So like
psychiatrist wants to
yesterday,
hear. But go ahead. Because you're
so
full of
like
love, right? And they will people in trouble will be attracted to you, and they will find peace from you, and they'll feel sooner or later they'll feel better just being around you
Mhm.
if you're doing things properly, right? There's an energetic aspect to this work, so sometimes just being with them is enough. Because if you're doing it right, you're radiating love and peace. That's what you are, right? That's all you've got, really, and a little bit of knowledge, information. So let's go. What kind of things are you dealing with?
so like one example was yesterday I met a guy who basically had a phobia of like death and because he lost someone I think very early in growing up, and because of that he developed some trauma, and then he eventually started going to religious stuff, and now he's very devout Christian, and he talks about God and like everything, but I can see that he's still suffering a lot. Like he's talking about all these things, but then internally he's still suffering. And I was thinking, how can I connect with him at his level, where I can
Well,
tell him something that's useful?
he sounds like he's made a connection at another level. You said he was a fundamentalist Christian.
He was a Buddhist before, but then he turned Christian.
Okay,
Uh,
so why? So it sounds like, so if you want to help him at his level, what is his level of Christianity? I would level. We shouldn't say that. We should say, what is the facet of Christianity on which he's focused?
yeah, he's focused on basically there's God and God is always there with him, and that gives him security, and yet that gives him like he has someone to like look up to and to ask for
Okay.
help,
Well, good. So
and that
right on. All right. Right on is what you say to that. But what has God been advising him?
That
The birds
he
here are
didn't
really
go.
getting excited. I don't know. Keep going. The birds are excited. Let's hear. Saying what?
So so with God, he I don't think he went into the reason of what God is advising him. It was just he was drawing strength from God, like a support,
Good.
and with that he was living his life. But
Does he
then there
need
was
help?
because I can see that he's still troubled, like he's still on medication, on the anxiety medication for since a while.
Does he have a
His
doctor for
anxiety.
this? Is he mentally ill, or does he just have a doctor that likes medication?
Oh, I don't think he's consulting any doctor. It's just like he was on medication. His doctor told him, "Oh, you are fine now," and then he was tapering off medication, and he still takes some when he feels anxiety. But
Okay,
that
well, on two grounds, I should say that I think the better part of wisdom is for me to remain silent. Number one, it sounds like he's got his religion and it's helping him.
Mhm,
And so let that be, right?
mhm, mhm,
What we're doing here is not for everybody. Okay,
mhm,
now religion has its pluses and minuses and so on and so forth, but at least in this day and age, we must respect those who have different ways of looking at these things, and that's fine. All right, so you leave that intact. With regard to the second thing, though, if he's got mental problems that are requiring, I mean, if he's taking the medication, that means it's prescribed, which means at some level there's a physician involved.
mhm.
You want to stay away from that. I mean, he's got his own doctor, he's got his own plan, he's got his own process. You don't want to interfere. So I'd say there, you just want to wish him the best, and I mean, you might inquire how things are going and be there for him in a way, but you don't want to mess with that. It's outside of your scope, I would say. It'd be outside
Yeah,
of
so
my
I think
scope. It'd be, I mean, I wouldn't want to touch anything like that unless I was going to take over and take over or something like that. But I don't think he's asking for that.
so. I didn't interfere, and I also know that I should not like take away something if I can't replace it with something better.
Very,
So I
very
didn't
good.
interfere.
Let me tell you a story about that for the folks in the audience. When I worked in courts, which I did quite a bit in my life, the judges, I worked in uh, courts for adolescents and other things as well. But in this case, it was an adolescent court, and these girls would get mixed up with these boys that were bad for them, and so the judge would order them not to see their boyfriend ever again, right? Which has about as much chance as, I don't know, a cow jumping over the moon. And so the principle, and I try to explain to them, is, Judge, you can't take something away from somebody unless you're going to replace it with something else. But they never understood that, and as I left, they were still doing the same foolish practice of taking something away without any provision for replacing it. Or as the Sufis say, quote, before you get rid of the cat, make allowances for the mice, end quote. All right, good. So it sounds like that's a good principle. Now, people, when they first get flush with this understanding of Dharma and the power of it, and they first get a taste of the love and the peace and the beauty and the power, all this stuff, it's a natural inclination to go out and want to spread it all around the world, right?
Mhm.
And that can be a real issue. I'll just leave it at that. One must be careful and respectful.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm missing. That the wisdom to know
Well, it'll
when
come.
to stop.
It'll come. A lot of wisdom is the conscious pursuit thereof. If you decide as a young man, I want to be a wise man, whatever else I am, I want to be a wise man, you can do that if you state it consciously as your goal and you keep it in your mind and you say, well, okay, I want to imbue myself with the writings, the poetry, even the music of wisdom. And I'm not about garbage and trash. I want stuff that's good for my mind. And you begin to cultivate it, and you start when you're young, and you just keep going, and it takes time, but it'll be there. And we need it. God, do we need it. And so for young men out there and young women, just make the conscious resolution. I want to be one of those people. A question about that, your friend or anything? I mean, not about your friend, about something else?
I have another question
Okay.
or something else.
All right.
So I wanted to like discuss a little bit about this whole business of karma that is very popular in India. So like if you do good things, then good things will happen. If you do bad things, the bad things will happen, kind of thing. And I used to think a lot about morality and those things before. Now I don't think that much about them. But still, if I'm living in the world, I feel like there need to be some kind of guidance on figuring out what is moral, what is ethical to live in the world.
I believe karma means cause and effect, no?
It's a cause and effect, yes, but in India, it's a very rudimentary level, which is like my action and the result of it.
Correct. What about the motivation of your action? If you go
I
to a
think
temple
motivation
and
is
you want everybody to see that you give, 1,000 rupees to the deity, and you make a big show of it, is that the same thing as if you quietly donate 1,000 rupees to the church and no one knows?
I mean, I think it's very different. Motivation is very important
Okay,
in
but in
doing
the
stuff.
India, we had the karma that you're speaking of. Does it take into account motivation, inner motivation?
I think if I look into the Gita, like the Bhagavad Gita stuff, they do take into account
Okay,
motivation as
all
well.
right, okay, good. So does that answer your question?
So 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 with motivation, then what should be the motivation for a person? Uh,
Eventually, there should be no motivation at all. Eventually, generosity should be nothing. You're not generous out of desire for heaven and fear of hell. You're generous out of insight because you know that the other is yourself. You know that we're all bozos on this bus.
mm,
We really are. We're all bozos on the same bus, and we're all the same bozo. And so there's no thought of gain or getting something back. So when the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is giving, that's generosity. Anything short of that is something else. It's barter. And
mhm.
we'll always have primitive peoples. I mean, I don't know if the word primitive, but we'll have simple-minded people. It's enough that they do good, frankly, as opposed to doing evil. And so again, this work is not for everybody. It's for a certain segment of men and women of all ages, pretty much, who are above average intelligence and who are sincere seekers and haven't found everything they needed in traditional religion or psychology or atheism or pantheism or whatever else, and they just are curious what the truth may be. Because there's a perennial, there's a description of it that is not recent at all. As a matter of fact, this is probably one of the oldest things we have. And it goes back to the Gitas, and it goes back to Pythagoras, and it goes back before that. And so it's nothing new, but it's something that got washed out of our cultures, in part because of the misuse of religion for political gain, like the Muslims and the Christians, right, during the Middle Ages, or the Hindus and the Muslims in India and Pakistan, or it's been misused for political purposes over and over and over. Religion has, but this is not about religion. This is about the quest for truth. The religions have typically been the place where this knowledge was stored, both in the Buddhist and the Christian and the Muslim and the Hindu traditions. Yeah. So there's not much. You have to go where the money is. Sutton's law. I'm sorry. How did we get on this?
Oh, we're talking about motivation.
Yeah. Motivation is everything.
So for a
If you seek
seeker
God
on the
because
path,
you want heaven, or you seek God because you fear hell, that motivation won't get you all the way to truth. It can get you a ways to a better life, I suppose, a bit, but it won't get you all the way to truth.
Mm-hmm.
You must love God. You must love truth for its own sake.
Mm-hmm.
Now that's just my perspective on it. And I'm talking
Mm-hmm.
to a band of people, a narrow band.
Mm-hmm. What if the motivation for the seeker of truth is that's the best thing to do? There's no other better thing to do than that.
I wanted to know who Jesus was in the beginning. I mean, I really did. I was a teenager, and I'd grown up enough, and I'd been curious about these things ever since I was a little kid. But when I got to be a teenager, I formulated it into a question because it was all around, and people were all going Jesus, 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 and I want to know who this man actually is. And I don't care if it's the church's version or it's a historical version. I just want to know, right? But then that metamorphoses into the search for truth, because Jesus was all about truth. And then to get to truth, the way it went, because I was sincere in my search, I don't know how I ended up with the Dalai Lama. And then after the Dalai Lama, I ended up with the Sufis. And then so on and so forth, right? And so now it's a universal quest for certain peoples, for certain women and men, and those are the ones I'm speaking to here. The ones who sincerely want truth, not just comfort, not just ease, not just social acceptance, not just a feeling of self-satisfaction, oh, aren't I great? Not that. They want to know truth, God, beauty. And then in so doing, you find out that God and truth and beauty are the same thing. You don't know beauty until you've glimpsed God, until you've seen God. And then you begin to realize where some of these impulses come from that we have on this planet. And then you begin to see the scale of this planet compared to the cosmos that we were given. And then there's the like almost unbearable mystery of it all too. And majesty. I hope I answered the question. If there wasn't.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Okay, a few more before we stop.
Not sorry. Yeah, that's pretty much the questions I had.
All right. Okay, sir. Let me see. I'm going to try and give introductory books or show them so people know which one to get. This one I've mentioned before. It's beautiful. The Subtleties of the the Inimitable Mullah Nasruddin, which is also the exploits of the incomparable Mullah Nasruddin. The book is upside down and backwards. Like the World. It's a joke book. I highly recommend it. Okay, folks. Anything else, sir?
Sorry. No, nothing else. Oh yeah, just one last thing.
Any practice questions? We already did.
Sorry?
What? No, keep going.
Yeah, so in the Sufi books, earlier you basically gave me a list of books to read in a particular order.
Yes, sir.
So for other people, like if I wanna like suggest something to someone else, can I just go for Mullah Nasruddin or Tales of Dervishes, or should I be more cautious about their state and then the order in which they should be reading?
That's delicate in that particular case. That's delicate. So we could talk about that offline. But the books that were meant for public consumption, for example, Tales of the Dervishes, or for the more intellectually inclined, the Sufis. And for general wisdom, by the way, if folks want general wisdom, this one by Thomas Clary, The Human Element, is recommended. He takes wisdom for the modern world from traditions dating back to Taoism. This one for the more academically inclined. I'm sorry. The Sufis, introduction by Robert Graves, Anchor Books, or Tales of the Dervishes.
Mhm.
Okay, sir.
Got it. Yep.
Hasta luego. Vaya con Dios. We'll see you, man.
Bye.
Take
Thank
care.